This episode is brought to you by HP Plus. In a world full of smart devices, shouldn't your printer be smart too? It is with HP Plus. These printers know when they're running low, so you always get the ink you need delivered. Plus, you save up to 50%, so you can print whatever you want, anytime you want. Huh, that is pretty smart. Get 6 months of instant ink included when you choose HP Plus. Conditions apply. Visit hp.com/smart for details.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_daddy. So we do have a lot of stats and grades and everything else that I want to go through. Couple thoughts. I'm not going to go super heavy with grades because at the end of the day, I think everybody's extremely happy with what happened in that game. And I think we all understand it was a hard-fought game, and that comes with positives and negatives. You win some, you lose some. And I don't, this week in particular, want to get too muddied up in, this guy was average, this guy was good, this guy was bad, whatever. I don't want to do that today. Beyond that, I do want to make one other comment, though, because it dawned on me as I was looking at it, and I was surprised by the at least from PFF's standpoint. Again, I have not gone back and looked at it, obviously, and I probably won't, although we'll talk about that in a second. It dawned on me, what was the question, and I ask a lot of questions, but what was one of the questions I asked prior to this game? What was one of my biggest complaints? It's the fact that this team has all the talent in the world, and yet sometimes they still struggle, and yet fans kind of complain about, well, we need like one more defensive tackle line. And my whole thing is it shouldn't have to be that way. There are other teams who don't have elite players. There are other teams who have guys that don't show up, but yet they still find a way to win. That's important. And if this is true, and again, take it with a grain of salt, whatever you want to say about PFF, fine, there's almost a positive in this. And the positive is a lot of things went wrong. A lot of the offensive linemen, Yashin in particular, got spanked a little bit by guys like Bosa. But you know what? The Packers found a way to win, whether it be scheme or execution by other players or whatever the case may be. The point is, we don't have to have elite-level players at every level of the game and have every single player play at an elite level on every single game, otherwise we lose. That's nonsense. That's not how football is. That's not how football should be. So as much as there's some shock and surprise and a little consternation, I suppose, even on my part, that was one thought that I had about this whole situation, and I think it's a good thing, and it really just goes to the character of what this game was. It wasn't pretty, but it wasn't supposed to be. The Packers need to stop either, winning pretty and losing ugly. There's got to be some win uglies. And this was a bit of a win. And it's not to say everybody was, again, Aaron Rodgers and Devontae and some of these guys, they were just on point. But the point is, the game in general was ugly. Not everything was perfect. The referees, the location, some guys not playing up to par, whatever the case may be, there are all these obstacles in the way, right? Momentum drastically shifts in the wrong direction. You got to be able to pull through some of those, and that's exactly what they did. Before we get into that, though, and I'll admit I have not worked my way all the way through all of these interviews or whatever you call it, the press conferences, but I did get through a couple of them, and I just want to play this for you because this is one of my favorite moments of any press conference that I've heard. I don't really know why. I think it just goes to character-type stuff and really just now some new appreciation for Yosh Nijman, but it's Davante Adams just talking about him and the offensive line in general. But I'm just going to play it all the way through. It's about a minute, so here you go.
What did you see from the offensive line today, especially with the injuries that you guys have had coming into today's game?
Proud of those boys. Really, really proud of those boys. Yash hasn't had a whole lot of opportunities, especially against teams like that, for him to have to be kind of thrusted into that position. Really proud of him. I love that dude. When we switched sides of the field in the fourth quarter, he's walking by me, and I'm just turning everybody up. I'm going crazy, and he looks at me. He goes, "Man, it's just a blessing to play with you guys. I really enjoy this." And I'm just like, it kind of just slowed me down for a second, and I just got real appreciative for having a teammate like that It's kind of crazy. He reminds me a little bit of Aaron Jones from a personality standpoint, because early in Aaron's career, he would do something and come back to the huddle. I'd be screaming, "Let's go! I need that from you every time. Let's go!" He'd be, "Yes, sir." And I'm like, "Aaron, you don't have to call me sir in the middle of the game." But Josh is a hell of a football player and great heart, just a great teammate all around. I'm proud of what they did up there.
I just love that. Thought I'd share that with you. But all right, let's go ahead and get into this. Look at the game in particular. We'll kind of zoom out and look at the landscape of the NFL and where the Packers stack up. First of all, looking at offensive grades, there were only 3 guys, but the top 3 guys were MVS, who was 3rd, Aaron Rodgers was 2nd, Davante Adams was number 1. He did have an elite grade, and yes, because I just can't help myself without jumping ahead a little bit, he is the number 1 wide receiver in football right now as far as his PFF grade. So even with a slow start to the season and what happened with the Saints and everything else, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is still clawing his way back. I think he's like 20th because of how bad that week 1 was, even with a good week this week. But he'll slowly work his way back. But Davante's already on top. He's ahead of every wide receiver in football. So absolutely incredible. Looking at the offensive line and blocking, we did not have any offensive linemen that graded out positively in terms of 70 or higher as a pass blocker. We did have Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon that graded out positively. His run blocking, again, no offensive linemen in the 70s. We had plenty of 60s, but none in the 70s. The only one with a positive run blocking grade was Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who was killing it off the edge. And again, I don't super care about it. Even when, Davante and Aaron Rodgers and all these guys heap praises on guys like Yosh Nijman and what they were able to do, it's not about he beat the crap out of Bosa. Nobody's saying that. It's just the fact that he rose to the occasion and he did what he had to do, and he wasn't a liability. He didn't go out there and just get annihilated and cause this whole thing to be lost. He with almost no opportunities, no snaps, no whatever. He's never really had this kind of time, and he's asked to rise to a massive occasion, and he just did it. Looking at the statistics, the only sack given up was given up by Royce Newman. Royce was the lowest graded offensive lineman, unfortunately, 40s for run blocking and pass blocking. 0 hits given up on Aaron Rodgers. There were 5 additional hurries. 2 of them were given up by Josh Myers, 2 of them given up by John Runyon, 1 of them given up by Robert Tonyan. That's a grand total of 6 pressures, 2 by Josh Myers, 2 by John Runyon, 1 by Tonyan, and 1 by Newman. So the other way to look at this is apparently Yosh was credited with 0 pressures. Billy Turner also 0 pressures. So 0 pressures given up by any of our tackles. The 2 biggest guys that I was most worried about were Yosh and Billy Turner, and they gave up 0 pressures in this game. Scheme or not, that's pretty awesome. As far as Aaron Rodgers, and I think I mentioned this yesterday when they kind of went over some of this stuff, but he had 5 big-time throws in this game. He only had 33 attempts in the game, 5 big-time throws. 13.9% of his passes were considered big-time throws. He had 0 turnover-worthy plays, which is just incredible. His adjusted completion percentage was 77.4%. And again, his time to throw, which we already knew because of some of the insights yesterday, but 2.04, which is really just incredible. The other kind of cool thing about yesterday, and it's kind of a small sample size because he was very rarely pressured, but even while under pressure, so he had an 83 overall grade was his or no, that was his, what was his grade? I think it was something like that. I don't know. Let me go back and look at it real quick. 82 overall grade. But he had an 83 overall grade while kept clean. He had a 71.5 overall grade while he was under pressure. Under pressure, it was only 5 of his dropbacks. But 4 attempts, 3 completions for 31 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 1 big-time throw. There was no problem. Even when he was under pressure, he kept his cool and he played through it. So that's absolutely incredible. Looking at the running backs, both of them, again, average grades. Kind of went over some of the basic statistics. But yards per carry after contact, A.J. Dillon 2.5, Aaron Jones 2.53, about the same. But Aaron Jones actually led in terms of missed tackles forced. A.J. Dillon wasn't credited with any. Aaron Jones had 5 of them. That's a lot. Aaron had 3 carries of 10 or more yards. A.J. had 0. Aaron Jones completed 4 first downs. A.J. Dillon got us 1. Elusiveness grades, A.J. Dillon 0 because he didn't force any missed tackles or anything. Aaron Jones with a 60.2. Looking at our receivers, again, Randall Cobb, mostly a slot guy, 80% in the slot. After that, Robert Tonyan, 48%, Allen Lazard, 43%, Devontae, 42%. They kind of mentioned that quite a bit on the telecast, how much time he's been spending in the slot. He's always been dominant in the slot. It's one of those situations where he is legitimately maybe the best, well, legitimately maybe, I mean, come on, of course he is, but even before he was like the number one wide receiver in football, he was one of the better slot guys in football. When he went into the slot, he was unstoppable. But it's one of those things where it's like, well, we don't want to take him off the boundary. He's our number one guy. We don't want to hide him in the slot. But they started to up that usage, and it's really working to his advantage. Josiah was about 31%, MVS 22%. That was about it. Yards per route run, which is always a fun stat when you got a guy like Devontae Adams on the field. Yards per route run, 4.13. Every single time that guy ran a route. And you want to know why? Why target him all the time? Because every time he runs a route, he's getting over 4 yards per carry, which is to say if they just threw the ball at him every single time, on average, we're getting first downs every time you throw to him. MVS was 2.46, Allen Lazard 2.21. All of these are very, very high. Generally, you're under 1. Because, I mean, just think how often before you're even targeted. I mean, depending on the guy. I mean, A.J. Dillon was 0.89, Aaron Jones 0.7, Josiah was 0.36, Tonyan 0.25. Longest receptions, we knew about MVS, 47 yards. Allen Lazard also had his 42-yarder. The one lone drop in the game was by Devontae Adams. It was kind of an off-target pass, but still very catchable. Contested catches, by the way, Devontae Adams, 3 opportunities. He only caught 1 of them. They had one guy with a missed tackle forced. That was Robert Tonyan. First downs, Devontae Adams had 9 first downs. It's crazy because there's a lot of wide receivers who they're not even going to catch 9 passes. In fact, a lot of wide receivers are not even going to get 9 targets. He had 9 first downs. MVS had 2 first downs. Allen Lazard had 1. Aaron Jones had 1. Passer rating, MVS had a 156.3, Lazard 118.8, Adams 106.7, and down from there it goes. On average, 120.5, which would be Aaron Rodgers' passer rating. Kicking over to the defense again, quite a few more positives, but also a lot more low lows. I think there was only one guy below a 50 on offense. There are 5 of them below a 50 on the defense. But on the positive side, basically 7 guys that graded out 70 or above. Darnell Savage was a 69.1. We'll call that a 70. Devondre Campbell, TJ Slayton, Oren Burks, Jair Alexander, Tyler Lancaster, and Chris Barnes, in reverse order, from worst to best, I guess, were the other 6 guys. Once again, I want to highlight right off the bat, there were 6 official guys with a 70 overall grade or higher. 3 of them, once again, linebackers. Devondre Campbell, Oren Burks, and Chris Barnes. Chris Barnes, by the way, the number 1 highest graded player on our defense. Last week was basically the same thing. Our 2nd highest graded player was Campbell. 4th highest graded player was Burks. 6th highest graded player was Chris Barnes. So I believe those are the same 3 guys, right? Barnes, Burks, and Campbell. So all 3 of those guys have been in the 70s the last 2 weeks in a row and have been the top 5 to 6 guys on our defense for 2 weeks in a row. What was it, week 1? Just out of curiosity. Oren Burks was the 5th highest. So Devondre wasn't quite, but Oren Burks has been in the top 5 3 weeks in a row now. Just throwing that out there. Again, we talked about it a little bit in the preseason. It's so weird to see linebackers doing so well, and everybody's kind of high on Campbell, which is fine because Campbell's doing great, but I think the assumption is, man, they really hit a home run by grabbing him in free agency. I think we hit a home run with, well, maybe overstating it, but regardless of how good this defense is overall, the reason our linebackers are doing so well is the change of scheme. It's Joe Barry and the different style of doing things. And I'm not complaining, and I'm not trying to disparage anybody. It's just the fact of the matter that a lot of Oren Burks, again, was one of the worst linebackers in football for several years. All of a sudden, he's a top linebacker in football. As far as run defense, we had 4 guys that graded out high: Jair, Chris Barnes, Tyler Lancaster, Preston Smith. Tackling was a little bit lower. We actually dropped a couple spots in the overall rankings. We're down to 3rd now, shucks. But still, several guys did a great job: Garvin, Burks, Stokes, Barnes, Alexander, and Devondre. Pass rush guys that graded out pretty high. We'll go with Gary, Amos, Burks, Slayton, and Clark. Again, these are all in kind of reverse order. And then coverage, we'll say Burks, Savage, Campbell, and Jair was number 1 with an 82 overall coverage grade. Going through these statistics here, pressures, there were 22 pressures against the San Francisco 49ers. Again, in reverse order, Dean Lowry had 1. He had a hit. Tyler Lancaster had a hurry. Jair had a hurry mixed in there. He only had, actually had 0 pass rush attempts. It was funny, Kevin King had the same thing. 0 attempts and a pressure because it wasn't meant to be a pressure. It just kind of turned into one. TJ Slayton had 1 pressure and it was a sack, so gotta love that. Oren Burks had 2 pressures on 2 attempts, which is obviously incredible. Two times he tried to get to the quarterback. He ended up with a sack and a hurry. Jonathan Garvin on 13 attempts had 2 pressures, which, 2 pressures doesn't sound impressive, but on 13 attempts, that's fantastic. He ended up with a sack and a hit. Preston Smith on 38 attempts had 4 pressures, which is just above 10%. It's fine, again, especially considering a guy who's been so dominant as a run defender. The fact that he's still at about 10, 11-ish percent, I'm completely fine with that. He ended up with a sack, 2 hits, and a hurry. Rashawn Gary had 4 pressures on 34 attempts, so 11.8%. He had a sack, a hit, and 2 hurries. And then the man of the hour, the man of the season so far, Kenny Clark, 6 pressures on 42 attempts, which is 14.3%. He didn't have any sacks, but he had a hit and 5 hurries in this game. Absolutely dominant, just across the board as a team, the fact that everybody stepped up. And like I said, that was the one thing that was kind of missing is we had like 2 guys that could get to the quarterback, and they just kind of alternated. And so when one guy gets there and nobody else does their job, the quarterback can evade. When everybody's just kind of beaten up on that offensive line, things change, and you don't have as many places to run. And there were a couple sacks that probably didn't need to be, but quarterbacks start to panic. They tuck the ball, they keep their eyes down, they're not looking downfield, and they kind of fight through. And then they realize, oh, I'm not down, and then they start to pick up their eyes, and that's when somebody else comes through. But, again, you wreak havoc and you cause panic. Did have a big pile of missed tackles. We had 10 of them in this game. Big reason Kenny Clark was not graded higher, despite the fact that he had a really good pass rush grade. He had a 26 overall tackling grade. He missed 2 tackles in the game. On top of that, Preston missed 1, Adrian missed 1, Ty Summers missed 2, Darnell Savage missed 2, and Chandon missed 2. Looking at coverage of the guys that were sorting it by targets, Adrian was targeted twice. 1 was caught for 12 yards, but it was a touchdown, so that kind of sucks a little bit. But otherwise, nothing. Darnell Savage was targeted 4 times. 3 of them were caught for 30 yards, no touchdowns, and a pass breakup. Ty Summers was targeted 5 times. All 5 were caught for 39 yards. Eric Stokes was targeted 5 times. 2 of them were caught for 16 yards. Again, I don't care about the grades or anything else. I know the penalties kind of hurt him, but I can't be mad about 5 targets, 2 receptions, and 22 yards in an entire game. I can't find a way to do that. Shannon Sullivan was targeted 6 times. 5 of them were caught for 87 yards. He gave up the most for any single person, but again, he had a tough assignment, and the 1 non-caught was a pass breakup, so that's great to see. Jair was targeted 7 times, second most of anybody. 4 of them were caught for 43 yards. He did give up the 1 touchdown, but he also had 1 pick and 1 pass breakup on the day. And Devondre Campbell was targeted the most, 8 times. 5 of them were caught for only 24 yards. 8 times they tried to pick on him, and they only got 24 yards out of it. No touchdowns, no interceptions, no pass breakups. So just a great. I mean, there's nothing here I'm looking at and going, that guy was trash, man. There just isn't. I mean, Ty Summers, kind of rough, right? 5 for 5. Tackling, he had 2 missed tackles, and he was only out there for run defense 8 different times, 20 plays, so one in every 10 he missed a tackle. That's not good, right? Chandon, but again, it's a tough assignment, so you're not too mad about it. There's really nobody that I'm super mad at here. Looking at special teams, we had 2 guys that graded out really well. Obviously, it's Oren Burks and Devondre Campbell, because why wouldn't it be? Guys that didn't grade out well, there's only 1 below a 50, and that's Alan Lazard, and I don't really care. That's not why he's on the team, so oh, shucks, what's he going to lose his job as a special teamer? Kicking grades, I mentioned how pretty much everybody gets like a 60 every single time, unless you do something super special. Corey Bajorquez got a 69.4 overall grade, basically a 70. Mason Crosby had an 82 overall grade. So, we get upset about special teams, and obviously there was that one bad thing that happened, but this was a heck of a day, man. Mason Crosby 3 for 3 for extra points, 3 for 3 on field goals. As I said, made 1 in the 30-yard range and 2 in the 50-yard range. Corey Bajorquez, 3 punts, 164 yards, 54.7 average, 47 yards net. 63 yards was his longest, booted 1 inside the 20. 2 of them were returned for 23 yards, kicked 1 out of bounds. 4.74 was the hang time. So, it was the fact that everybody stepped up. And listen, when we lose, it's because a whole bunch of guys don't show up, right? I can't explain it. I don't know why it happens, but there's just a lack of energy, and you're missing offensive line, you're missing pass rush, you're missing this, you're missing that. This was a game the Packers were destined to lose, but everybody stepped up. From the punter to the kicker to the offensive lineman to the safeties to the corners to the quarterback to the wide receivers to the running backs, every single phase, every single player, every single whatever found a way to contribute, found a way to help. Even Chandler, he kept getting picked out. Yeah, and he had that one pretty big pass breakup, didn't he? Even when you got a real tough assignment and maybe you're not quite up to it, you still did enough. So, very exciting. We'll take a break right about here. Come back and again kind of look at more of a zoomed out look at this stuff, I guess. I did have a bit of a thought. I was going to do it today, and it's one of those things I'm probably just not going to have time for, but I am curious about it because when I looked at some of this stuff, I wanted to go back and kind of grade just a player. Not everybody because that's too much for me, but I wanted to go back and look at Kenny in particular because he didn't grade out all that well. Again, most of it was tackling. They said he did fine in pass rush and everything, but even his run defense grade was low. And I started thinking about it, and I thought, I don't know how PFF does things, but I was trying to think, how would I do it? What would be my criteria for wanting to grade? How do you quantify what is good, what is bad? How good was that, and how bad was that? Is it a half a point, a full point, 2 points, 10 points? How do you quantify these things? But the one thing that kind of hung in my mind about Kenny is how I struggled about whether I was really excited or really upset about some of these plays where he just knocked the offensive lineman into next year, blew up the play. The running back, he had the running back in his grasp, and then he missed the tackle. And then somebody else tackled him. So overall, the play was a success. Overall, the play was a success largely because Kenny Clark blew it up and gave the defense time to get there. But he also did fail a little bit, right? The tackle would have been massive, and instead of losing 5 yards on the play, he ended up maybe gaining a yard or 2. I'm kind of making that up off the top of my head from what I kind of remember, but it's one of those things. I just want to see it for myself. I want to be able to go back and go, yeah, he didn't actually do that well. He's getting blown off the ball a ton, and I didn't really see that, and maybe that's okay, that's fair. I just want to see it and be able to do it. And anyways, my thought was maybe once a week, if I can find the time, which I can never guarantee, but if I wanted to do it today, but I was like, well, I have to do the podcast, so I don't know. But I can do private YouTube videos and then basically broadcast it to Patreon. I haven't done it before. I don't know how it would work, but that was a thought that I had. I don't want to do it just on YouTube or on Facebook because they will demonetize me, and that's going to be problematic for me. But I think if it's private, if I'm not blasting it out there for everybody, I think it will be okay. Not positive, willing to risk it though. I just thought it'd be kind of fun to kind of go through it, look at it, review it, and just see for ourselves what we thought and kind of give our own little scoring system. Just a thought. I don't know. But anyways, why don't we go ahead and take a break? Let me check real quick on Patreon. Don't think we had anybody new. We don't. Once again, patreon.com/pack_daddy if you want to support the podcast. John Beggin, I don't know if I said thank you to you. I feel like I didn't for some reason, but John, thank you. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. You guys know on Sundays I like to, give you a little bit of my own personal thoughts and opinions and who's going to end up winning or losing football games, right? Simple fact of the matter is I just don't really have the time to pay attention to all the ins and outs, the injuries, the spreads, whatever it is, for every single game, all week long. I just don't have time. What's nice for me, for you, is to be able to plug into a show where they give you all that relevant information, which is why I would recommend, if you don't have the time to track every single thing, but you want to be up on what's going on, you should check out BetMGM Tonight, presented by BetMGM. Because like I've said, you need to have the best information so that you can make the best decisions moving forward, whether you're making bets or just trying to understand what's going on. And every little detail matters when you're making bets, right? BetMGM Tonight is going to dive deeper into those little nuanced things to help give you an edge. It's fun to bet on the game. It's even more fun when you got the inside scoop. So tune in to BetMGM tonight, presented by BetMGM. Listen on Audacity, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
When people say I should stick to sports, I just roll my eyes. Sticking to sports is impossible. It's stupid.
We want to know how the games on the field are affected by what happens off the field, and vice versa. Sports not only reflect our culture, they drive our culture. So please, let's not pretend that somehow athletes should just shut up and dribble.
Shut up and dribble, please. I want them to talk and dribble, and I'm pretty sure that they can.
I personally cannot, but I'm glad that they're able to.
I'm LZ Granderson. You may remember me from my time at ESPN. I'm an op-ed columnist with the Los Angeles Times and a political contributor to ABC News.
And I'm Will Leach, the founder of Deadspin, R.I.P., a contributing editor at New York Magazine, a writer for MLB and Medium, and the author of the novel How Lucky.
We're the hosts of The Long Game with LZ and Leach, a new weekly podcast about the collision of sports, culture, and politics from the Recount and Acast.
That's The Long Game with LZ and Leach, available every Wednesday on the Acast app or wherever you get your podcasts.
The Fall Line is a true crime podcast covering the coldest cases in the southeastern United States and occasionally beyond. We focus on the missing persons, the unsolved murders, and the unidentified does that don't get media attention. Empathetic and intensively researched, The Fall Line will take you on deep dives into unsolved cases that you've never heard of and make you wonder why you haven't. Find us wherever you listen to podcasts.
In early 2020, best friends Brian and Hoadley set out on a mission.
This whole podcasting thing is easy. Easy. Inexpensive. Easy. You make a ton of money.
The result, a mediocre comedy podcast.
You're telling me there's a chance.
I'm telling you there's a chance. Why wouldn't you do it?
A for effort, you two. A for effort.
It's a double rainbow!
The commercial break on Spotify. Tune it in and ride it out.
All right, so right now, based on how everybody's graded out, and again, you got to remember, this isn't like a power ranking where you try to assess who the best teams are. This is what's happened so far. The Green Bay Packers right now are graded 15th overall, 15th ranked offense, 18th ranked passing, grade, I guess, 7th ranked pass blocking unit, 14th ranked receiving unit, way down, 27th rushing team, run blocking 17th, defense is 13th, run defense 11th, tackling is 3rd, pass rush, they've got, where the heck is it, 20th, coverage 14th, and special teams, the Packers are 25th, so that's not super shocking. But again, this isn't PFF's assessment of who's most likely to win the Super Bowl. This is looking at the last 3 games. The Saints game is included in that and saying, what have you done so far? Again, Rodgers got a little bit of climbing to do as far as his overall grade, 23rd overall, behind in yards, behind in touchdowns, all that kind of stuff. So he's climbing, but he's got a little bit of a ways to go. However, big-time throws, he's already kind of up there. In terms of actual big-time throws, he's tied for 4th with 8 of them. Big-time throw percentage, he's 6th at 8.2% of his passes coming in at big-time throws. Kyler Murray is number 1 with 9.5. Average depth of target, Aaron Rodgers is tied for 5th with 9.6. And he has the 10th quickest time to throw so far with 2.54 average time to throw. He is also 11th right now in terms of passer rating, 102.9, which again, considering how bad week 1 was and week 2 being good, not great, the fact that he's over 100 passer rating right now is pretty impressive. Just hope that whatever happened in week 3 continues for the rest of the season. That's all I know. Looking at the receivers, once again, Davante Adams already number 1. There's only 2 wide receivers right now that are graded in the 90s, Christian Kirk and Davante Adams. And again, I don't really expect Christian Kirk to stay at that level necessarily. Christian Kirk is a solid wide receiver. He's actually had 3 really good games in a row, so maybe it's just the connection between he and Kyler Murray that is just working. His lowest grade so far this season is an 80.3, but I mean, his last 2 years, he's graded 62 and 62, and all of a sudden he's a 90.5. But Anyways, things are working quite well for Christian Kirk, but again, is he going to sustain that and be an actual threat? I'm guessing not. And then after that, you've got 89.2 Cooper Kupp and 87 Mike Williams and 83 Colin Johnson. And I don't even think Colin Johnson's going to stay that high. So again, it drops off dramatically. The next person, who's like Minnesota? Where are they at? Minnesota, you've got Justin Jefferson is 16th right now. He was the guy kind of competing, and he's already got a little bit of work cut out for him. But right now, Devontae Adams is tied for 4th in yards, 309 yards through 3 games. Yards per route run, I mentioned how impressive that is, but he is 5th overall in the NFL right now, 3.43 yards per route run. The guy in second place is 3.86, just to give you an idea. Deshaun Jackson, because he only catches 50-yard bombs, is 5.42. He is also tied for 5th in how many first downs he's converted for his team. He has gotten 15. Nobody has more than 16 right now. Aaron Jones right now is ranked 16th overall. Again, no real super dominant rushing performances from any of our running backs so far, but I'm positive that's about to come. You could kind of see it. You see A.J. Dillon take smaller steps, and you saw Aaron Jones start to take some chunks in that game. So it's taken a little bit of time to rev up, but it's coming. The good news is, although he only has 2 rushing touchdowns, nobody has more than 3, so he's got plenty of time to get caught up and dominate the NFL in rushing touchdowns once again. Not that it matters, because he's got more touchdowns than like everybody right now. Aaron Jones has 5 total touchdowns, which is tied with a few other people. The only people with 6 or more are quarterbacks. Looking at the offensive line, we have, assuming Elton Jenkins we're still talking about Elton Jenkins. We have 2 top 20 tackles. Billy Turner is ranked 18th overall. Elton Jenkins is 9th overall. Don't expect him to fall off very much because he's not playing. Looking at run blocking, again, both top 20, 17 and 20. Looking at the guard position, the 5th highest graded pass blocking guard in football right now is John Runyon. So that's a thing. He's given up 0 sacks, 0 hits, and 2 hurries. 98.5 pass blocking efficiency for whatever that's worth, if you care. The 6th highest graded run blocking offensive guard, which he's not playing all that much, but it's Lucas Patrick. John Runyon is ranked 27th in that category. And then we've got Mr. Josh Myers, who after a couple, maybe not the greatest games in the world, he did drop from first place. He is now in 9th place, which is still obviously quite good. His pass blocking grade, however, he is 5th overall. So he's still dominating in pass blocking. It's just a matter of the run blocking wasn't super good. And even the pass blocking this last week didn't help his case very much. But still a fantastic football player, still learning, still growing. And again, it was the 49ers defensive line. Whereas some of these other offensive linemen maybe have not exactly gone up against the best of the best. Looking at overall defensive grades, Kenny Clark is ranked 21st among all defensive tackles. Again, his 61 run defense and 41 tackling grade is what's really killing him. In terms of pass rush grade, though, he is 9th, so he is top 10 in that category. He is 3rd, tied with Daron Payne for the amount of pressures he's had this season. Only Cam Hayward and Aaron Donald have more pressures, and Cam Hayward is only 1 away. Aaron Donald probably isn't catchable with 19, but we'll see how that goes. But he's very close to second place, which, let's be honest, when you're talking about defensive tackle, it's a battle for second place. By the way, Cam Hayward is probably going to be passed. He had 12 pressures in week 1. He had 2 in week 2 and then 1 in week 3. So he fired out of the gate with 12 pressures, and that's the reason his numbers are so high. Likewise, Daron Payne had 3 in weeks 1 and 2 and then had 11 this past week. Kenny Clark has been pretty consistent. In fact, it's been getting better every 3, 5, and 6 have been his numbers. So if he can just maintain playing this well, he's gonna dominate. Looking at our edge rushers, Preston Smith right now is the 16th highest graded pass rusher in football. Rashawn Gary is down here at 45th, mostly again because of coverage and run defense. But Preston Smith is the 3rd highest graded run defender off the edge. He has basically a 90 overall grade, 89.2 through 3 weeks. The only guys higher are Alex Highsmith in Pittsburgh and DeMarcus Lawrence in Dallas, which is DeMarcus Lawrence is an absolute beast. If we look at pass rush pressures, Rashawn Gary is tied for 17th with Hassan Reddick, 13 pressures in 3 games. Max Crosby somehow has freaking 25 pressures. Harold Landry has 20, so I don't know what's going on over there. Looking at win percentage, Rashawn Gary is actually 10th right now. 24.3% of the time he's beating the guy in front of him, so that's pretty awesome. Again, obviously we'd like to see more sacks, but even if I go back and look at it, it's just one of the... this is why I don't like sacks as a stat, because it's so fluky. So we've got Rashawn Gary down here, 13 pressures, 1 sack. Chandler Jones has 14 pressures and 5 sacks, right? But Cam Jordan has 15 pressures and 0 sacks, as does Yannick Ngakoue. Eric Armstead has 16 pressures and 1 sack. Romeo Okwara has 16 pressures and 1 sack. Harold Landry has 20 pressures and 2 sacks. Max Crosby has 25 pressures and 2 sacks. So, I mean, it's just a weird thing. Myles Garrett has 6 sacks on 16 pressures. Hassan Reddick has 6 sacks on 13 pressures. So, I don't know, man. It'll happen when it happens, I guess. Among linebackers, this is where things get a little bit fun. If I get rid of the filters that talk about, how much a person has played, and let's see, should there be a minimum? Let's just say 10 snaps, so you've played at least a couple. If you do that, we have, where is it? Devondre Campbell is 12th, and Oren Burks is the 7th highest graded linebacker in football, which is just kind of crazy. If we do the normal filter, Burks goes away, but Devondre Campbell is the 10th highest graded linebacker in football. If we look at run defense, Devondre Campbell is the 9th highest graded run defender in among linebackers. He is also 14th in coverage, which is crazy because those are the two things you have to do. He's a top 10 run defender and a top 15 coverage linebacker right now. Chris Barnes, by the way, is also, he's not graded out super well. He must have had a bad game mixed in there somewhere. I don't know what happened. But he is 25th in coverage. Chris Barnes also the 4th highest graded tackling linebacker in football. So little mix of everything from those guys. Devondre, by the way, and the only reason I bring this up because it's kind of a nothing stat. I mean, as far as like ranking or whatever, because there's only 3 things you can be. There's first place, second place, and third place among interceptions among linebackers. But the reason it's cool is because, again, perspective. Only 11 linebackers have interceptions in the NFL. Devondre Campbell's one of them. Roquan Smith has a pick. Darius Leonard has a pick. Isaiah Simmons has a pick. I mean, these are guys you don't expect to hear Devondre Campbell listed with. Logan Wilson has 3 interceptions, which is ridiculous, but it's a reality. Looking at NFL passer ratings, by the way, Devondre Campbell is ranked 18th with a 72.1 passer rating when targeted. Among corners, again, despite the slow start and whatnot, Jair is already 9th, kind of climbing up the ladder, and it's just... It's the same group of just, with the exception of guys like Nate Hobbs, no idea who that is or how he got on this list, and he won't be here long, and Tavon Campbell. I mean, it's Marshawn Lattimore, it's Casey Hayward, it's Jalen Ramsey, it's Xavier Howard, it's Chris Harris, it's Carlton Davis and Dante Jackson, and, the same group of guys that are just on top all the time. And guess who's back hanging out at the club? It's Jair, right? It's just good to see because you worry about flukiness, Guys like Casey have been at the top so many times. Jalen is always at the top. Xavier is at the top. I just wanted Jair to be among them, and he is. And this is with a low grade mixed in against Detroit, 59.9. If it wasn't for that touchdown, I think he would have had a real big game, but obviously he gave up the touchdown and a couple receptions or whatever. But again, we're just kind of feeling this thing out. Nobody's... With the exception of maybe Aaron Rodgers and Devontae, I don't know if anybody's fully hit their stride yet, where it's just like, dude, maybe Kenny, because he's been kind of ridiculous. But like Rashawn's got another gear in there somewhere. Preston, as far as his run defense and stuff, maybe is peaked, and that's fine. Savage, like he looked real good. I don't know if he's fully hit his stride. Amos obviously has not. Stokes, I'm sure, has got a gear in there somewhere. So it's kind of cool to see. Like they're kind of competing. They're getting there. He's climbing, and I don't even think we've seen anywhere near the best. And the other thing to note here is if you want to be one of the best, it's not just about breakout games, it's consistency. I mean, the fact that he's had 2 games in the 70s and is already a top 9 guy is because a lot of these other guys, they just have bad games. You know what I mean? Patrick Surtain had 1 good game, 1 average game, and 1 bad game. And he's considered a very good corner in the NFL. I'm not even disputing it. I'm just saying that it's hard to be consistently good. Going through the rankings, Jair is 24th in run defense among corners. Jair is 4th in tackling among corners. Eric Stokes is 34th. Again, Stokes is graded out low because he had a 51 overall grade in this game, which is annoying, and also he would have had a much higher grade last week if they wouldn't have had that touchdown. So he's kind of getting hurt by some stuff that isn't his fault, like a bad penalty and whatnot, but whatever. But Jair Alexander 10th right now overall in coverage. Eric Stokes is 45th with a 64.5. But again, looking at the statistics, 10 times he's been targeted, 3 receptions, 3 pass breakups, and the touchdown was not his fault. He's had as many pass breakups as he's had receptions. That's ridiculous. So, grades schmades, the dude is playing very well. In fact, he is the second best corner right now behind Christian Fulton in reception percentage. In other words, how many times when this person is targeted does somebody actually catch the ball? But interceptions, again, kind of a fleeting thing, but worth noting. Again, there's only 3 options: 2 picks, 1 pick, or 0 picks. There's only 4 corners with 2, and obviously Jair is one of the guys that's got 1. Pass breakups, Eric Stokes is tied for second place with 3 pass breakups. Byron Jones, William Jackson, Teron Johnson with 4. So again, everybody's real close, just hovering in there. And as far as NFL passer rating, Jair and Stokes are kind of right next to each other, 26th and 28th. Jair is 26th with 69.6 passer rating when targeted. Eric Stokes, 72.9 passer rating when targeted. And again, the bigger issue here is the penalties, the fact that he's got 2 penalties, which is kind of stupid. It should be 1. Safeties, again, these guys haven't fully hit their stride, but they're kind of next to each other. They're both climbing a little bit. Darnell Savage, 32nd. Adrian is 35th. Run defense, obviously, Adrian is the man. He's 6th overall. Savage is not in the top 50, so I'm not going to go hunting for him. Amos is also 10th in tackling because that's kind of his major forte there. Darnell Savage right now is ranked 17th in pass rush. Adrian is 26th. And then when we come to coverage, that's where Darnell Savage comes in, 20th overall so far. And again, he's getting better with every game. The 2 touchdowns given up, that's going to kind of weigh him down for quite a while. But again, he's really starting to pick it up. So far, Darnell Savage, 7 targets, 5 receptions, 43 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pass breakup. Adrian, 9 targets, 7 receptions, 49 yards, and also 2 touchdowns. Again, that Saints game is it's weighing everything down a little bit. But there's a lot of season left and a lot of time for them to really step it up. And finally, kicking over to special teams, Mason Crosby is the 4th highest graded kicker right now, thanks especially to this last game. But 8 for 8 on extra points, 4 for 4 on field goals. You can't really do too much better than that, aside from Graham Gano, 3 for 3 extra points, 7 for 7 on field goals. And, of course, Justin Tucker with a 92.6 overall grade because he just nailed a 66-yard field goal. Rightly so. He is the highest graded kicker right now. And then punting again, Corey with a great week is now the 2nd highest graded punter in the NFL right now. Let's see, yards per attempt, where is he at? He is ranked 11th with 48 overall. Net, which again, all these stats are kind of weird, but he's 6th in net yards. As far as long, he's also climbed the ranks. Now that he got that 63-yarder, he's tied for 8th with 63 yards, obviously. He is tied for 11th with kicks inside the 20. And as far as average hang time, now he is up to 2nd behind A.J. Cole for the Raiders. 4.55 average hang time. 4.59 is the guy in first place. So, again, everybody's just climbing. Bojorquez, he was, like 10th-ish, and now he's, depending on the category, he's definitely top 10. Again, his overall grade is 2nd. So, top 5 kicker, top 5 punter, couple good corners, safeties, linebackers, pass rushers, defensive tackles, offensive line's pretty good, quarterback's pretty good, wide receiver's pretty good. This team's all right, man. I think they'll be fine. We're going to have to start turning our attention to the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is a bit of a catastrophe over there. Not to say they can't win, not to say they can't be a tough team. It could be a classic Packers trap game where they come in too confident and a good defensive line kind of beats them up. But they're having some issues, but we'll look at that probably tomorrow a little bit, or we'll look at something, I don't know. But anyways, I got to get going. You folks have yourselves a fantastic day. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.